I'm tying T.E. Pritt's #1 water cricket on a number 14 hook with, this is actually a gold or goldenrod thread. It says yellow or orange. Just tie that in. Do enough wraps to hold it in place so it won't come undone. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie in my hackle feather. So one of the options is to use a Starling wing feather. So this feather came off of the back of the Starling wing right there. I'm going to grab the tip of this feather with my hackle plier, really about halfway down. Kind of gauge how much hackle I'm going to need, and then pull down on the fibers of barbs that will become the hackle. Thin out that tip, and then I'm going to turn it so that the tip is back towards the bend of the hook, and I'm going to tie it in with the shiny side of the wing, or the shiny side of the feather towards the shank of the hook, because I'll be lifting that up and then those will be forward. And the idea there is to try to get those barbs to bend back towards the bend of the hook. And I'll just wrap along that tip of that feather, touching wraps about half the body back. And then I'm going to cut that out, see if I can get a little bit of angle cut on it. And then I'll wrap over those ends also, get them laid in against the shank of the hook. The other optional on this fly is a black silk thread rib, which I'm going to tie in. So it's optional, so you would not need to put the rib on. I need to have it far enough under the body so that it ties in, and then bring my body back halfway between the point of the hook and where the barb was. I did smash the barb. I do smash the barb on all of my trout flies. And then I'm going to put some more wax on my thread. Again, waxing the thread helps to preserve it. I did wax that black thread prior to attaching it. And then touching wraps back up, and that will cover all the colors underneath the feather and the black thread. And that's really all that's necessary on a spider, North Country spider, is just those 2 layers of thread for the body. I'll stop here when I get to the hackle, and then I'll take that black thread and spiral wrap it forward. Try to make my spirals nice and even. And then when I get up behind the hackle, Pritt calls it the wing, although there are a number of the North Country flies in his book that have a hackle and a wing both. So 3 wraps over the top of that thread, 2-3 wraps underneath of it. If I get a little bit of a lump right there behind the hackle, that's okay. It will help it to stand up. And then I'll clip that thread out. I'll grab that stem with my hackle plier, stand it up, and then I'll pull back on the barbs. Try to kind of pinch them along the rachis. And this particular length I'm using a little bit longer than the hook shank length. And there's some leeway, some room for variety on the length of the hackle barbs on these flies. At least the gape width, a gape and a half, but you can go a little bit longer and shank length on them. So I'll just wrap that in until I've wrapped in all of the barbs that are on that stem. I'll wrap up over the top of that, catch it in with 3 wraps. And then I'm going to let go and pull back on that stem and just wrap under it. See if I can kind of catch it a little bit right there. I don't want to wrap back on the hackle barbs because I don't want them to lay down. I want them to be able to stand up. And then I'm going to pull forward on that stem. It's called a rachis. And then using a razor blade, just lay it against the thread. I don't want to cut the thread. All I want to do is cut out the rachis as close as I can to the thread. And it's kind of a stiff, maybe my razor blade is too dull too. And then I'm going to put a little bit more wax on that thread. That will help that knot stay secure so that I don't have to put any head cement on it. Push back on the hackle barbs to get them out of the way from my knot. And then I'm going to just put a 3-turn whip finish for the head. The wax thread then will hold, and I can put my scissors against the thread right up close and just push to cut it out. And then I can take a little brush and just kind of brush out the fiber, the hackle barbs. And I have Pritt's #1 water cricket.